some of the new features and options that are now available on LHI. And then at the end, we're going to have questions and discussions. Okay. So Miranda, I'll turn it over to you for general announcements and reminders.
Okay, thanks, Claudia. So as many of you know, the Equal Justice Conference is next week in Austin, Texas. Myself and some other Pro Bono Net folks will be in attendance and hope to see many of you there. And please also consider attending the Self-Represented Litigants Network pre-conference event taking place the day before the conference starts. We want to congratulate Angela Tripp on her Ignite presentation, as well as other partners who attended the 2015 LSC White House Forum on Increasing Access to Justice. We also wanted to flag a few upcoming funding opportunities relevant to LHI partners, and I can share those links in the inbox. Claudia, do you want to talk about these two grants a little bit?
Yes, these are new grants that are coming up. The Mary Kay Foundation is doing grants for shelters, domestic violence shelters, and their grants it's a lot of grants at around 20,000 per grant. If you already are working with DV shelters and have relationships with them, I encourage you to check them out. The list of grantees for prior years is very long, and it has included DV advocacy groups and people that work with victims in helping them get protection orders. So I encourage you to check them out and see if it's something that you may be interested. And if you're interested in brainstorming, let me know. I have some things that I can send you if you're interested in increasing your domestic violence type collection for LHI, and if the shelters want to work with you on that. And the other one that we featured last month is the American College of Bankruptcy, the ABC Foundation. They do funding for consumer law type innovations, and these are also smaller grants that are due on July 1st. Again, the list of prior grantees is pretty friendly to legal aid. So if you already have a consumer law set of interviews that need updating, or where you want to add additional support like videos or things that can be done in a smaller budget, check them out. And then if you want to think about ideas and see what other people have done in the area of consumer law, feel free to reach out to us to brainstorm or for examples and models. The survey, I'll cover that briefly. We are working with Central Minnesota Legal Services on a TIG grant where we're going to be looking at improving the Google Analytics reports we pulled out of the LHI pages, and also looking internally at LHI interviews to see if there are data and fields that could be pulled for research and sustaining the forms. So Central Minnesota is doing a survey that also includes a lot of questions, because we're also trying to gather data on staging pages so that we can see if we can update the work what we had done in 2011 about LHI staging pages and how to manage LHI content. So I know that some of you have already provided feedback, but if you want to either participate, there's going to be a small advisory group of owners, content owners on LHI that will work with us on the project. So if you want to participate or have some feedback, if you're already doing some of these disclaimers and releases, etc., please answer the survey, and the deadline for it is May 1st. And if you're interested in like getting more data through Google Analytics or internal answer analysis, fill out the part there to volunteer to be part of the advisory group. Okay, back to you, Miranda.
Okay, thanks, Claudia. So as Claudia mentioned, and as many of you know, we launched a new LHI 2.0 environment last week on April 20th, and thanks to everyone who tested beforehand, who provided feedback and reported issues before and after the launch. So in terms of post-launch issues, we've sent some messages to the listserv and have been in touch with partners and end users one-on-one to answer questions and to investigate recent reports. So we just wanted to also take some time on this call to give a summary of where things stand with some important known issues that have emerged. So the first thing I wanted to flag was reports of missing user accounts in the LHI system. So we've been working with the technical team and the rebuild developers to address this. Also, for some users, password reset is not working. So we're also in the process of troubleshooting this issue and hope to have an update to the community soon on this. We will be working on revised widget code for partners using widgets due to some usability issues flagged post-launch. And there are also some widget users who have not converted their widgets from the old environment, so we'll be in touch with those users as well. So those widgets are still functioning. However, we're not recording any data, so your quarterly reports won't reflect the time period where you haven't converted over post-launch. There's some template and content issues that I think Bart is going to talk a bit about, flagged here.
Okay. So the issues, some of the issues that we've seen are of concern to template developers because they may be on the front lines in terms of addressing some of these issues. We've seen a number of issues around, we've seen one issue concerning A to J interviews, and we've also seen some issues with A to J interviews that would not upload. The first issue that we've encountered, and we've notified folks on the list, and they're in our list of known issues, is that there are some A to J interviews where there is scripting that sets the value of either a true-false variable, a HotDocs true-false variable, or a HotDocs date variable, where the set results in an invalid value for the variable in question. So a true-false variable might be set to, you know, hello world, which is a string, and HotDocs only accepts true or false as values for HotDocs variable, true-false variable. And the new site is using something called HotDocs SDK, which is new technology from HotDocs, and that is a lot more sensitive to these kinds of things, that it's rejecting those answer files that have invalid values. In other words, the content of the answer doesn't match the variable type. So A to J is sending out an answer file that says, here's a true-false variable, and the value is, as it was set by the developer in the interview, hello world. And HotDocs is saying, nothing doing. That's not acceptable. There's a similar issue with date variables where a date variable is being set to either to today or to simply to today, which is supposed to return today's date, or it's being set to another date variable which is attached to an A to J date field. And as I understand it, and from looking at the answers and so forth, behind the scenes, A to J actually stores dates from date fields, and it stores today as numbers, and which are translated into true dates. And there are technical reasons this was done. I think it's in part because that way date and time can be handled in one field. The problem there is when it's getting set, the date variable that is set ends up having a number stored in it, and it's not being translated into an actual date in the format that HotDocs understands. So again, the HotDocs SDK is rejecting it. And the folks at Cali are looking at this and working on coming up with solutions, both in the short term for developers whose interviews might have this problem, and also a possible long-term fix where the viewer basically would fix things for you. And we're not sure what form that would take, but it will likely involve setting it to something that is acceptable to HotDocs and it'll still be the responsibility of developers basically to go in and make sure that they're not doing something that conflicts, or otherwise the logic in their templates may get messed up. I think what's happening for the most part is folks are using these variables internally within A to J, so everything appears to work and worked before because the values weren't really being used in the HotDocs templates. If they were, the HotDocs templates would not have worked. And I think what's going on is there's logic in the A to J interviews that says, you know, if my true-false variable equals hello world, then do this, otherwise do that. And that's fine. It's still going to work in A to J, but when it hits HotDocs and hits the server, it's not going to work. The issue with, kind of peculiar issue with, that I've seen anyway, with uploading A to J interviews is that when the A to J interview contains HotDocs variables that were imported from HotDocs, at least I think that's what happened. They were imported from HotDocs, and along with the variables, names, and types came the prompts from HotDocs. In other words, the HotDocs component file contained variables that had prompts, and inside those prompts were apostrophe characters, you know, your son's birth date or something like that. And when they got sucked into A to J for some reason, that apostrophe character, or whatever character it was, it may have been like a curly apostrophe, got translated into something that is invalid XML. Specifically an ASCII 25 character, which looks like, if you look at it, it looks like a vertical line with a horizontal line sticking out of it to the right. And when you try to upload an A to J interview with that character in it, you get an error. It will not upload because the server is parsing the XML and says, hey, that's not a valid XML, I'm not going to accept it. I think I saw some reference to smart quotes as being a problem in A to J interviews, and I don't know the full details of that. If there's anybody on the call who can speak to that at some point, we could maybe get into it. One other thing to note is that we've encountered some templates with HotDocs templates that have the pound sign character in the name, and those would not upload to the new system using the new upload process, the package process that is used on the new site. And when we contacted HotDocs, they said, oh, that's not supported anymore. We're going to update our documentation. So if you have templates that have the pound sign in the name of the template, then you're going to have to change it next time you update it, or otherwise it's not going to upload. I think I've covered everything that's still out there and an issue that we wanted to cover. I'll send it back to you guys to see if there's anything, remind me if there's anything else that we need to talk about.
So there's some questions and comments. I don't know if we want to save that for the question comment discussion of the call, or cover it now.
I'd be happy to do it either way.
It'd be good to have Bob Aubin talk about the smart quotes.
Yes, that's a good idea. Yeah. If somebody
Bob has dealt with that issue.
Let me take him off of mute. One moment, please. Hi, Bob.
Hi, okay, can you hear me?
Yes, thanks.
All right, yeah, definitely do not use smart quotes in A2J interviews. It'll cause the problems that Bart showed you, and it could cause other problems. What you should do is create a report for your A2J interview and search for the smart quotes and replace them with straight quotes, and then upload that. Period. End of comment.
Does that apply, Bob, to both quotes, double, quotation marks, and to apostrophes? So if you have apostrophes that are...
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Some of the
Any
stuff
kind
we
of
saw,
smart quote. Yeah.
yeah, because we had the problem where we couldn't upload, and we just tested it. It wasn't well-formed XML, and it was because of that character you had talked about, Mark. So,
Yep.
and it was caused by a smart quote that had been in a prompt in HotDocs.
Okay, so this...
Do not use them.
And Sheila's asking about coding to fix the true-false issue, and is it safe to set variables to true or false? And I actually haven't tested it, but I think
that's a non-issue. I think, you know, I checked with Michigan, for instance, and they said everything's working, and all different kinds of true-false spelling and capitalization is used in those interviews, and they all work. So.
right, as long as it's true or false and not something else like...
Oh, yeah, not one or two. Oh, yeah, no, you can't.
One or two won't work. Even Y and N will not work.
Oh, absolutely not. True and false.
True and false is the only thing, and I think you're perfectly safe if you set it to that.
Right, and you've got to watch out, and I'm trying to think of what the problem is. Steve, Simon, if you're on the call, remember where you were trying to set something true, false, and it became a multiple choice in HotDocs or vice versa. I can't remember, but because of this kind of a problem. So HotDocs might see an answer come through as true or false when you're trying to use that maybe in a multiple choice variable. It'll treat it as true, false, not as MC. So you got to watch out.
And Sun Kim is asking how to search for a smart quote in an A2J report.
Well, create a smart quote in a Word document. You know, if you have smart quotes turned off, turn them on and create both left and right because they're different. So create left and right smart quotes, save them in a text file, and then turn smart quotes off again so you don't create them. And then use the smart quotes to search through the Word document you create from the A2J report. You have to search for left and right and then replace it with a straight quote. Just to search and replace. It happens really fast.
And in Word you can also do an insert symbols and special characters, and up comes a list of all the special characters, and you'll find all the smart quotes on there. So
there you go. There you go. I have a text file with all the weird things, you know, because, and upgrade, everybody, you know, upgrade to A2J 4.1.1, whatever the latest version is. Don't use 4.0 because all of the bullets, smart quotes, apostrophes will cause or can cause corruption in the interview. And boy, Sheila can talk about that. She just had a beauty. Where it multiplies. Every time you save it, it doubles. So it can get quite big. And it looks like Klingon characters, so if you see that, that's what you have.
There are some other questions in the inbox. So let me read them. There's one that says, can someone from Cali give us an approximate date for instructions to fix these problems? Do we have somebody from Cali?
I see Sam is on the call.
Okay.
If he put him on, we want to put him on the spot.
And Jessica.
And Jessica too, yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Let me unmute Jessica and see what she can share with us in terms of this, and Sam. Jessica, I'm gonna unmute you.
Hi all. I'm not sure on the timeline for when it would be fixed in 4. Sorry.
Okay, and Sam, I've unmuted you too.
Yeah, I have an idea of what we can do to fix it. Don't really have a timeline yet, though.
Okay.
I did have, I typed it into the question box, but a suggestion for those of you that are using true-false variables to set like 5 or whatever if good morning true-false equals what good morning for internal directing, you just use a multiple choice variable instead of a true-false variable. And then HotDocs will accept whatever is in that answer file instead of breaking, basically.
One caveat on that is that if your interview was setting true-false variables to something unacceptable or setting a date variable to something unacceptable, and there are existing answer files, if you go in, all you do is eliminate the scripting that sets the true-false variable or the date variable, or if all you do is change the variable so that substitute scripting so that you use a multiple choice variable instead, unless you do more, you may end up with users who can't use existing answer files because they already ran the old version of your interview with the invalid answers, and unless you reset those values to something acceptable, you could set it to true or false for a true-false variable, for example, then when they come back and try to use that answer file, they're still going to have a problem. Even though you fixed it in the interview, you didn't fix it for them.
Good idea. So just on that last question, or in the last questions, do some advanced logic that says, like, set whatever to true on that very last question.
Okay. So, anything else on true or false or the date issue?
Well, am I still on?
You're still on, Bob.
Okay, well, it might be good practice to start now to use the same syntax you use in HotDocs, and that is uppercase true and uppercase false. You don't know what's going to happen down the road.
Okay. So, Miranda, we'll go back to you.
Okay, thanks all. So just to wrap up our rebuild updates before turning to HotDocs 11, just wanted to highlight some changes in resources. The system only allows for one account. We've gotten some really helpful feedback on this rule, and we're talking about that internally, so we'll share more details on that. But basically the idea is that this allows for cleaner data and increased security of accounts and passwords. Also along the password and account security line, we've set up password security questions, so people opening accounts in the LHI 2.0 environment will be able to set up password security questions, and so another layer of protection for accounts. For users who are migrated over and therefore don't have password security questions, the default question is what was your childhood nickname, and the default password is MarLabs, and that displays when somebody goes to reset their password, for instance, and is presented with this question and they have an account that was ported over. In terms of post-launch resources, there is an updated LHI 2.0 contributor guide with revised links and a few images. So I'll share the link to that in the chat box. There will also be video tutorials on updating and uploading A to J and HotDocs content available soon to complement the guide. We've circulated LHI 2.0 release notes before the launch. We'll be implementing a What's New section available for end users as we analyze what questions we're getting in the LHI support box. And as always, feel free to reach out to myself or Claudia with questions or comments about the rebuild issues that you encounter, and then also LHI@probono.net is available. So I think there's a question, so I'll just read that. Oh, can you put the password in the chat box? And so Claudia has added that to the chat box. So that's it for rebuild updates, and unless there's questions on any of this, then we can move to the HotDocs 11 discussion.
Okay, it sounds like we're ready to go forward.
Okay, so Bart, do you want us to give you control?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about HotDocs 11. Now, the first thing I should note is that we've been on HotDocs 11 on LHI for quite a while now. I don't remember how long we've been on it, but we were on it for quite a while before the rebuild. What's new in HotDocs on LHI as far as HotDocs version is concerned is 11.1. And we've been on 11.0. something on the live server for quite a while, but on the rebuild we're actually on 11.1. And there are some differences in 11.1 from 11.0.12345, 6, I think it went up to 6, that I'm going to mainly focus on because we've actually covered in other calls a lot of the changes that came with HotDocs 11. But I want to briefly review what some of the changes were in HotDocs 11.0.x and just put in a pitch for folks who have not upgraded to HotDocs 11 to do so, and they should do so soon. And there's increasing urgency, I think, that you do so for a couple of reasons. First of all, you're going to find, if you're on 10.2, theoretically, you can upload to LHI, and you'll continue to be able to upload to LHI, but you're going to have more and more and more problems as time goes by. And the reason for that is that HotDocs basically, they've stopped developing 10. There's not going to be a 10.3, a 10.4, and all the bugs and problems that have come up in 11, all the things that have been fixed, and HotDocs Developers, as you will see from this screen, is now on 11.1.3. So many things have been fixed in HotDocs Developer, both in the developer and in server, that you're way behind, and you're increasingly falling behind if you stay with 10.2. The other problem is that when you try to upload from 10.2, sometimes now with the new package upload process on the rebuild, things don't work, and you don't know why. You just get generic errors, or it seems to upload fine and then the template fails on the server. When you try to upload the same template with 11.1.3, lo and behold, you get a warning that that something is wrong with the template. There's an error in the template. It's an error that you probably could have found some other way, but it would have taken you a couple of hours to find it versus trying to upload and saying, aha, I've got an invalid reference to a component that no longer exists. I'll go fix it, and bang, in 5 minutes you're done. And at some point, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for LHI to provide support for developers who were on the older versions of HotDocs, because they're going to tell us, I tried to upload and it didn't work, and then we've got to go and try and upload the same template in 11 and find out what's wrong with the template, whereas the developer could easily have found out themselves if they were on the latest version. The other good reason to upgrade is that now we are seriously committed on LHI to keeping HotDocs server on the latest and greatest version, and all of the really cool features of 11 and 11.1 that you will want to take advantage of are available on the server. I'm going to focus on one of them today that I think is really important. But before I do that, I just want to point out to you that if you want to read more about what's new in HotDocs 11, if you're still on 10, then you can go to the HotDocs downloads, hotdocs.com downloads. You can go to the HotDocs 11 developer, and you can click on README, and you can get a list of everything that has been added in HotDocs 11 and fixed in HotDocs 11. And I'm just going to scroll down for a second to the original release of HotDocs 11, and then we'll start digging a little bit into HotDocs 11.1. Whoops. Let's see, doing here. I'm trying to resize this thing. Okay. Bear with me a second. Okay. So in one of the important things that came along with 11 itself let me get to 11 here, was support for authoring templates in the docx format. And obviously you have to have Word 2007 and later to do docx templates. You can still do RTF templates if that's what you want, but docx templates really now, they're the default template format in HotDocs, and I have found docx templates to be much, much better behaved in terms of not having the corruption problems that RTF has. I'm not going to say that they're absolutely without problems, but they are much, much better behaved than RTF. Another new feature which we've actually covered in detail on a previous call, which is worth mentioning for anybody who has not upgraded, is the advanced scripting features, which are local variables and parameters. So you can now have, in HotDocs 11, you can pass parameters to a complicated computation. So for example, you can have a computation that puts together the first, middle, last, and suffix for a name, and you can pass those four things to one computation that takes care of it instead of having a separate computation for the child's name, the petitioner's name, the respondent's name, etc. Saves a lot of coding, saves a lot of debugging, big labor saver. The other thing is local variables. If you've ever tried to do a lot of scripting in HotDocs computations where you have to use a different variable to do things like keep an index for a loop, if you're using while loops, for example, now you can have a local variable that HotDocs doesn't even know about outside of that particular computation, and doesn't show up in your list of components, doesn't clutter it up. Very, very powerful feature, which is worth upgrading. That one feature, I think, is worth upgrading to 11 alone, even if none of the other features existed, and even if there weren't problems with uploading now to LHI using earlier versions of HotDocs. I'm not going to go into all of the new features of 11.0.x, but I'm going to talk now a little bit more, and I'm going to demo a little bit of the new stuff in 11.1, which, as a result of the rebuild going live, is all these features are now available on LHI in HotDocs server. The single most powerful, useful thing, which I have not had a chance to fully explore because it's so brand new, but I think it's really going to be useful, is this new error text keyword. And I'll demo this, but basically the error text keyword lets you create custom validation for fields in your interview. Now you have some built-in validation for fields that, for example, if it's a date field and the user puts in an invalid date, it'll say, please enter a valid date. If you try to put, text, alphabetical characters in a number, it'll say that's not valid. So it's very basic level built-in validation. The error text keyword basically lets you do very granular specific validation. So if the user does something that you don't want them to do, they enter a value that you don't want them to use, it can basically stop them from going on and tell them exactly why they can't they can't do what they just did. There's another new feature, automatic grouping of variables into default dialogues, and I'm not sure how valuable this is in general, because my preference is to script everything down to the absolute details. And this is really a feature where you can have variables that get grouped into HotDocs. Basically will take all the variables that are not in dialogues and put them together in dialogues and group them in dialogues. So it lets you do sort of a quick and dirty interview without building dialogues. And oops. So and the other thing is, you'll notice here it says not Somebody maybe could just tell Kanchana that we're on the call. But this, in the 11.1 release, this feature is valid only for templates published to the desktop environment. So it doesn't work on server anyway. I don't know how useful it is, but it's there in case you need to do something quick and dirty. It might be useful for ultimately if you're doing A to J interviews and you don't want to build a full interview to test your HotDocs templates, but you want to have something that's a little less onerous than being presented every question one after the other. Right. When you test the HotDocs template, it might well be useful. But in general, probably not for published HotDocs interviews where you're going to present it to the actual users. You can easier creation of shared component files. You can previously when you created a new template, and if you wanted to use a pointed component file, you had to create the template, close it, and then go into Component Manager and point the component file for that template. You can now, when you're creating the template, you can now designate a shared component file to use with that template at the same time in the new template dialog box. You can't do it with the template open after you've created it. You have to do it right when you create it, or else you have to do it the old-fashioned way, which was to save it, close it, and open the Component Manager to do it. There's also, and I'll demonstrate this, in the old days, if you wanted to do a repeat within a table cell, you had to embed you had to put the repeat in a computation and put the computation in the table cell. Because anytime you put repeat fields in a table, HotDocs decides that you want to repeat the entire row. And I'll give a quick demonstration of how that works. Probably not super of great relevance to folks on this call, but there's better support for updating table of contents, references, fields, etc. in HotDocs server templates. And I haven't explored this, but I'll take it HotDocs at their word that it works better. The only thing I should point out is if you're counting on updated table of contents, references, and fields, etc., that they've now separated out the updating option in desktop from the one in server. So if you want your stuff to update on server, you have to go to the HotDocs server tab and check off the option to have things update there. There is support for insert instructions in embedded computation variables. You could not do that before on server, and you can now do it. You can only have one insert in a computation, but you can now do something. Previously, you'd have to put the insert on the face of a Word template, or you'd have to put the insert in a control field, only directly in the control field in a PDF template. You can now put it in a computation if you want to. WordPerfect X7 support. New license model is worth mentioning. If you upgrade to HotDocs 11, this does not happen, but as soon as you go and get your free upgrade to HotDocs Developer, I should say, 11.1, it's going to require a license key. And when you license HotDocs Developer, when you get your 11 license, they'll give you a license key, and you have to enter it when you install HotDocs 11.1 or later. Basically, they have figured out that there are a few people out there cheating who buy one license and install multiple seats, and this is an effort to prevent it. You can also, there's support for inserting images in tables in docx templates that didn't previously exist. New currency symbols, the yen and the pound, probably not too much of interest to folks on this call. And the maximum field size is increased. So if you want an if statement that is, it used to be you could only put, for example, an if statement that had 256 characters in it. You can now put 512. I'm not sure I would ever do that. When it gets beyond 40 or 50 characters, my tendency is to want to put it in a computation, because then I can lay things out in a way that makes more sense to me and format it in a way that makes more sense. You try to do that in an if field that's right in the face of the template, and I found weird things happen. So let me jump over to my little demo. Here's a situation, a table where I've got an address here, and I've got a person name here, and both of these I want to have repeat. So I can make this table repeat the whole thing. I've got a repeating dialog, repeat field, addresses, and then I want within this repeat, I want this to repeat as well. So I want to be able to list multiple people that this person lived with at this address. So previously I would have to put a computation here with the repeat in it. Now all I need to do is choose my repeat, select this field, and select my repeat dialog, and I can put a new line character there. So if in older versions of HotDocs, when I tried to test this, I would have gotten an error. And let me just put something in here. I would have gotten an error when I tried to test this. So I would have, I'm just going to put in junk in here. When I tried to put in, and I can do document preview, and everything works without using a computation. Very nice to have. Saves a little trouble and time. One less extra variable. Lets you do things in here maybe that would be a pain in the neck to do in a computation. So on to error text, which I think is a really cool, powerful new tool, which I think some folks have asked HotDocs for years, and they finally heard the plaintive cries. So right now, let's go into this example dialog. So right now, there are some tricks you can use to sort of do custom validation. You can require variables. You can use require. So if I do a test here, and I know this is a required variable, and I'm not going to answer it, I'm going to go next. And this is the dialog that I get. One or more questions in the custom validation examples dialog are required and must be answered before you can proceed. If you had 10 or 12 variables here, and one that was easy to miss or something, this generic dialog is not too helpful for the user. I mean, it works because, yes, they see that there's red and there's an asterisk and so forth, but it's not very specific. Let's go into the script for this dialog, and I'm going to comment out the require. And I'm first going to show you a somewhat simplified example. Actually, let's uncomment this one first. Okay, so what I'm doing here is, if the variable name is not answered, I'm setting this new keyword here, error text, to you must enter your name to continue. And here's what happens if you run this dialog and the name is not answered. First of all, the red X appears here, the white X, I should say, on a red circle appears here, and you get you must enter your name to continue, which is the text that I set error text to. So if I then put in a value for the name, the error disappears. So you'll notice in my script that the only condition is that name is not answered, which it usually won't be when there's a new answer file and the user is entering information for the first time. Here's a, let me uncomment this next line here, another example. So here I've got a condition if age, date of birth is less than 18. So if they enter a date of birth that makes them a minor, then I'm setting error text to you must be 18 or older to use this template. Let me show you what happens. I'll update this and I'll show you what happens. So I've got, let me get rid of the name here first of all. Okay, so the first thing you'll see is that it doesn't say anything about the date of birth here because it just basically gets to the condition has not yet been met. So if I go in and I put in today's date, for example, as the date of birth, it says you must be age 18 or older to use this template. Let me try to go next, and it won't let me. But if I then put in a date, say, that works, then it says you must enter your name to continue. So I can continue. If I try to go next, I get a pop-up that says you must enter your name to continue.
Hey, Bart, a question?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, can you make the error text cumulative? Is that possible by setting it to, maybe you're going to do that. I see. Never mind.
Next step.
Sorry.
So I'm going to comment this block out, and I'm going to replace it now with some new logic. Okay, so the first thing I'm doing here is I'm setting error text to an empty string. So unless one of these conditions that follows is met, then there's be no error message. So I can do, let me do an update here, and let me erase the answer. So this condition, this is not answered, so the error message is showing. If I go back to my script here for a second, I've got another condition here that says if, well, first of all, let's look at this first condition here. If not answered name, set error text to error text plus, you must enter your name to continue. And then I've added a couple of spaces at the end here so that I can add other messages, and it looks kind of nice, there's spaces between sentences. So it's going to, basically it's going to cumulatively set the error text to everything where the condition for the error is met. So if I go back to update here, and I'll say, yes, I have children, notice the error message has changed. You must enter your name to continue. You cannot use this template if you have children. If I go next, I get the same message. And then I'll go down here and I'll put in a minor's date of birth, today's date of birth. My error text message has changed now to reflect the fact that I've also made another mistake. And if I do next here, I get a full message about all of the things that are wrong. Maybe a little onerous to script if you have, dozens of variables or something on a dialogue, but it does give you tremendous power in terms of validating answers that the user is entering, making sure that they answered questions if you want to sort of focus their attention on something that they haven't answered. And as soon as I correct the issues, I'll say no, and I'll do another date of birth here, and so the error message disappears, and I can happily go on and finish my interview. And I think this is a really nice new feature, and it's, again, something, along with parameters and local variables, it's a powerful feature that I think makes HotDocs 11 worth the price of admission. I'm going to stop. That's sort of the end of what I had prepared to talk about, and see if there are questions, comments.
There is a question.
This was the, Sheila is asking about parameters and local variables, and I might be able to actually, let me see if I from an earlier call, I have a a demonstration template. Let me see if I can quickly pull that up to make that little more concrete. Okay. Okay. So I have to remember which variable has the
It'll be a computation, right?
I'm looking for a parameter in the script, but I'm not seeing it. So yeah, well, let's see. Maybe it's in this one.
See where that's used.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is an example of a local variable. The word counter here. This only has a value within this computation, and this is something you often want to do. You want to be able to use a while loop to loop through stuff, and you want to keep track of which one you're on. But in the olden days, you had to use a number variable, and that number variable, you had to be careful not to use it somewhere else so that you didn't mess up this computation. I can have a local variable called counter in 20 different computations, and HotDocs in one computation doesn't know what the value is in another computation. So I can use the same thing over and over and over again in various places, and I don't have to worry about a conflict between this computation and others. You can do this in a dialog script. You can do it in a computation. Let me see if I've got one with a, I think full name is an example of one with parameters. So if I go to my locals tab here, you'll notice I've got a whole bunch of parameters. So I've got first name, middle name, last name, and suffix as parameters. What that means is that they're not variables in the component file. They're actually local to this computation, and I can call this computation. If I do a test, let me see if I have an example of. So I've got this. Here's an example. I've got variables for the child first, middle, last, and suffix, and I'm calling the computation to put together the full name right here. I'll show you what that looks like when you put it in the document. So this is my full name computation that uses parameters. Then I've got 4 parameters that I'm passing to it. It knows about first name, middle name, last name, and suffix, but I'm telling HotDocs essentially, okay, I'm calling this script with these values. I want to pass the child's first, middle, last name, and suffix. So I could use, if I had a petitioner first name, middle, last, and suffix, I could use those with the same computation, and it would do all the good stuff that it needs to do. So I don't have to write a computation to do everybody's full name. I could just have one computation, then I pass it the appropriate values to get the full name of whoever I want it. And that's a real simple example. When you get really complicated computations that, for example, we do a lot of estate planning systems where we need to build a list of identification elements for particular fiduciaries, like executors, and it needs to put together their name, their relationship to the client, their address, and so forth and so on. Did somebody answer the street address? We use it. If they didn't answer, we don't use it. We just use the city and state and so forth. And you could write 20 different computations to do that. They'd all look the same, except they'd all use different variables as the sort of the input. Here, you can use one computation and input it, provide the input that you want, and you can send it. You can't send it a full dialogue, but any other variable value. You could even put in, if you want to just concatenate plain text, you can put in quotes some plain text here and pass that as a parameter. You can pass it a counter for a dialog. So you can within your computation, you could say if this parameter number of entries is greater than 1, then do this, otherwise do that. So very, very powerful tool. Anybody who's done programming will recognize this as parameters you could pass to a function or a subroutine. It's basically the same thing. So you can write a generic routine that does something, and then you can reuse it over and over and over again without having to recreate it, essentially. Hopefully that answers the question. Just checking questions. Oh, those are answered questions, sorry.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
Looks like Sun Kim has a question. Just came in.
Okay.
Is there an easy way to oh, you see it?
Yeah, is there an easy way to convert HD templates to from RTF to DocX? Yeah, I haven't done it in a while, but I think you can I think you can use Template Manager to do that. I don't want to start it up here because this library has so much stuff in it. It's gonna, but if you've not used Template Manager can, if you go to Tools, let me see if I can find a library that has, maybe go to this one. So if you go to Tools, let's see if I've got one here that's might all be DocX, unfortunately. Yeah, I think they're all DocX in here. But basically what you do is you go to Tools, Template Manager. Sorry about that. You go to Tools, you go into your library, you go to Tools, Template Manager. Might take and then there's a way to do en masse conversions. So you can go to trying to remember where it is here. Something up here. Convert files right here. So, and this will give you an operation if it's a I'm not sure. Oh, I've selected a CMP file, so it's just all it's letting me do is convert it to work with HotDocs 11. But if it was an RTF file, I could select convert Word, MS, Word, RTF templates and clauses, and then I could select over here. I could select MS Word DocX, and I could do a mass conversion basically of everything in the library that I wanted to have converted over. I would be, sometimes I've seen situations where that worked really well, and sometimes afterwards there was some cleanup necessary because RTF can have some corruption in it, and oftentimes the corruption kind of gets carried over to the DocX. But just make a copy of everything before you do the conversion because it wipes out the old versions. It doesn't leave them behind, so it's good to have backups in case something goes wrong during the conversion. And it converted to HotDocs 11. I think it already was HotDocs 11, but so do we have other questions? Oops. I seem to have lost my question panel here.
I think we don't have any new ones. At least I don't see any more.
Okay, good. Okay, so I guess we're done.
So thanks everyone for attending, and I added the registration link for our next call into the chat box. Thanks, Bart, Mark, Claudia.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.